Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Good morning/afternoon, Lock Shoppers. Going to the bullpen today is no Dusty, no Huss. Matt Awanek with you here, hosting the Lock Shop, joined by Jake Bolamos from Coolbet Canada. We've got a lot to get to today, but Huss, I believe, is down in Vegas. Dusty's got a game to call today, so Jake, you're stuck with me. You're stuck with me on this day, but it's going to be a fun show because we've got a lot of NFL to discuss. But how are you doing today?
Doing well, yeah. Patty couldn't even make the call. He was down in Jamaica the last week, so I don't know if you and I have ever done a show, just you and I.
We haven't,
but I'm excited. It's the first time for everything. I'm sure the people in the nasty chat are going to be giving us a hard time, but that's all right. I'm excited. NFL Fridays, I'm always excited to talk the picks. I just gathered everything from all the guys, so I've got spread picks from everybody and the touchdown score. I'll actually sneak preview the touchdown score parlay is already live in the exclusives before we even get to it here.
So you got Husses because Dusty sent me Husses yesterday, but he didn't send me anything like his or anything. So I don't know why he was doing that.
Yeah, 10 minutes to showtime here. I was like, Dusty, you got picks? And then he did send them over with his touchdown score. So we're good to go. I got Patty's, Huss, Dusty, and myself. I think what we'll try to do when we do get to the NFL portion is anything overlapping, I think we'll just try to touch on once and then move on. I think sometimes that's the easiest way, especially with as many picks as there are.
Perfect. Well, do you want to start with NFL? Or do you want to start with World Series and get to the NFL after that and quickly crush out a little bit of World Series? Or should we build, we do have to build an Oiler parlay for the game today. So yeah. I'm going to just throw that out there to the nasties right now. Throw your ideas into the nasty chat. Throw your ideas to 780-218-9999, the Paris Jewelers inbox. And then maybe we'll get to that in a little bit and allow the nasties throw out some of their ideas of what we could do in that. I have some ideas of where I would take that one. But do we want to talk a little World Series first with this historic matchup? As I don't know what it's like for you as a Jays fan getting ready to watch the Dodgers and the Yankees. I myself am actually a Yankee fan, so I'm pumped about this. But are you excited to watch this World Series, or are you one that just wants the meteorite to hit and destroy everything and not this World Series not to play out?
Yeah, I'm the guy with the sign. I just hope both teams lose. It's exciting. If you're talking about strictly matchup, listen, at baseball, I know people can find it boring. I know it's a long season. But if you would have told me at the start of the season we're going to get Dodgers, Yankees in the World Series, that's a dream matchup for the league and a dream matchup, for baseball fans alike. So I'm not too upset about it in terms of matchup-wise. But, yeah, I really hope neither team wins. I don't know how that's gonna be possible, but being a Jays fan, I hate the Yankees. No offense to you, Awanek.
That's what we do.
Dodgers,
bring on the hate. That's the way it is.
The Jays. There was a moment there we all thought the Jays were going to get Ohtani, and sure enough, it just ends up being the Dodgers. And then, sure enough, in his first year with the Dodgers, they're in the World Series. So, listen, I don't sympathize with either one of these teams. They spend a ton of money. That's how baseball is set up. But, I'm not there's not an underdog really in my eyes. Obviously by the odds there are, but neither one of these teams I'm going to consider the underdog. Let's root for them.
Well, I'll make the case for the little old Yankees here. They're the second highest spending team in their own city. They can't even be the highest spending team in their own city. The small payroll team of the Yankees. They're going to lose Soto to the Mets. I think everyone should get on board with this. These underdog, scrappy Yankees who haven't the Yankees haven't even made it to the World Series or won it since 2009. It's such a long time for the New York Yankees where the Dodgers have just won. This drought must come to an end. Didn't win anything in the whole 2010s. It's about time that the New York Yankees finally get this title.
Listen to this. It's about time. This is unbelievable. No shot. I am not rooting for the Yankees. And in turn, I'm not rooting for the Dodgers. I'm rooting for a good series, and I don't really know. Maybe I won't watch the deciding game. Maybe that's how it'll break down for me.
Yeah, that's the key. Like,
Although, listen, I
watch
will
anything
say,
celebrate.
I know we're going to dive into it here, probably into the whole series tonight. Though I don't mind the Yankees as a slight underdog. I know they're on the road, but Garrett Cole versus Jack Flaherty, I think there's a clear-cut, like, better pitching matchup there for the Yankees. I can't get a good read on the total. Like, it's pretty high for a World Series game, and I did see a little stat that I think for Game 1 totals tend to go over. This is just in previous history, and Game 2 to 7 totals are way down from there. So maybe it's a feeling out process, but I do like the Yankees as a slight dog tonight with Cole on the bump.
Well, I'll say if this game isn't over, because the over-under on Coolbet right now, so the Yankees plus 106 on the money line, Dodgers minus 125, over-under set at 8.5. If that's hitting over, I mean, that's a Dodgers win because that's a waste of a Garrett Cole start.
Right.
Yeah, that means Garrett Cole is getting beat, and the Dodgers are getting to Garrett Cole, and that's not good for the Yankees for the overall series because you've now just lost one of the starts from Garrett Cole. That's the way I'll look at that, that if the over does hit today, that bodes very well for the Dodgers, not just for today's game, but I think overall for this series.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Like, if this game goes over, it's more than likely that the Dodgers won and they got to Cole early. But, I mean, as a Yankees fan, you're hoping for a great start from Cole tonight because with the way the travel works out, the possibility of how the series could play out, he could end up pitching three different times in this series, depending on how many games we go. And that's, that's your horse if you're the Yankees. Like, you need to win your Garrett Cole starts. And that's why I think I'm probably going to jump on the Yankees tonight. It's going to be hard for my heart, but hopefully good for my wallet.
What do you think for the whole series, though, then? Like, because the series price is not too much different. I got to go find it here. From today's game. Yankees plus 106 money line for today's game, Game 1. But overall for the series, they're plus 108. Dodgers minus 127 for the whole series tonight, minus 125. Do you look at just the winner of the series, or are you looking more towards maybe how many games it goes?
Yeah, it's a good question. Honestly, just peeking at it here, I think for the series, I would lean Dodgers. I just think I don't know. It's tough because the Yankees have a lot of that batting power too. And I mean,
okay, here's how I break it down somewhat is I think the Yankees have better starting pitching. Dodgers probably have a little bit better of a bullpen. I would give a slight edge hitting-wise also, though, to the Dodgers. And I would say the manager of the Dodgers have the edge on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the number makes sense to me. Dodgers right now to win the World Series, minus 127. Yankees plus 108. Just the way I talked about the Yankees today, if the Yankees do come away with a win in the Cole start, that's when I might go to the Dodgers and see how much it is. Because you might get a plus number on the Dodgers if they lose Game 1, right? Like, those numbers could flip for all we know. And maybe you may even get it better than a 108 on the Dodgers. I'm looking at the exact series score here. If you're taking the Dodgers, I think it makes sense. It's the chalkiest one of the bunch, but Dodgers in 6 to win 4-2. I don't mind. That would be a home World Series win. Cole picks up a few wins in his starts, but the Dodgers ultimately take care of business. That's 4-1 right now. So I think if I'm thinking about games, I think 6 or 7 is fair. But I do slightly lean Dodgers. But like I said, I might wait till Game 1, see how Cole pitches. Because if you get a Yankees win tonight, you're going to get a better number on the Dodgers going forward.
That's a really good way of looking at that. The one thing I look at, like, if you believe that the Yankees are going to win, if I'm just looking at World Series MVPs, Ohtani is the best, the favorite at plus 200. Judge is second at plus 400. Aaron Judge hasn't shown to be a real playoff performer as much yet. And, last series, it was the two guys, one being the ALCS MVP, which is Stanton, and then Juan Soto. Juan Soto's been everything that the Yankees have wanted this season. He's plus 500. That if you believe the Yankees are going to win this, I think it's a really good chance that it's going to be Juan Soto who's the MVP. Garrett Cole, by the way, as we mentioned, like if he gets the 3 starts and he happens to win all 3, he'd be a guy that would be in contention there. He's plus 2,800. But I do like the idea of Juan Soto being the MVP for the Yankees if they happen to win. And like you go back in 2009 when they won, it was Matsui who ended up being the MVP for them that World Series. They had Derek Jeter, they had A-Rod, they had all these great guys, but it was, and Mitsui wasn't a nobody. But I don't think he would have been the favorite going into that. So if you do like the Yankees to win this, for any of the listeners out there, I do like the idea of Juan Soto being the World Series MVP. You got anything else on the World Series?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say Soto, he's been to a World Series too, right? Back with the Nationals. That's when he kind of broke onto the scene, and, we saw what he was capable of at such a young age. So, I mean, he's not afraid of the big moment. I think that's probably a good analysis by you, because, Judge, you would love Judge to come alive and be the Aaron Judge, that you see in the regular season, but it just really hasn't hit yet. Stanton's been a really, really good piece for them in this run. Muncy is an interesting name, 10-1 on Max Muncy. He has been really, really solid these playoffs. A veteran guy, like someone who's been around with the Dodgers for a good little while. I just worry about namesake. Like I don't know. And you know what? The World Series MVP, like if I'm remembering, a couple recently, I think Steve Pearce won a World Series MVP with the Red Sox, maybe back in 2018 when they won the World Series. I can't remember what year that was. Former Blue Jays, Steve Pearce, if you remember him. So, I mean, I guess that would be one of the things with the World Series MVP is it doesn't always go to the biggest name on the board. I know you're seeing Ohtani at 2-1 there. I'd probably stay away from that. Obviously, he could absolutely win it, no problem, but just not enough value there. Betts and Muncy, if you like the Dodgers, since you broke down the Yankees really well, I think Mets or Muncy is not a bad play, especially with how good both of those guys have been.
Should be a fun World Series. I hope it ends very quickly. I hope it ends for the team in the pinstripes very nicely. But we'll see. I'm excited to just see also the TV numbers for this, because as much as people hate the Yankees, as much as people might hate the city of LA and the Dodgers to a degree, these are the two biggest markets. They're the two iconic franchises of this league, and those TV numbers, they should be massive for Major League Baseball. So we'll see how that fully plays out. The first game, Edmonton time, 6:08 is first pitch out in Winnipeg, 7:08 as the Yankees take on the Dodgers. So you can get into the game actions, as well as there's all the futures for this series up at Coolbet. Let's switch over to the National Football League then. And how do you want to do this? Which game do you want to start with for this upcoming weekend in the NFL?
Oh, it's a tough place to start. I mean, the board, coming off of last week, I had a pretty solid week, and I kind of like to look at the early board like right after Sunday, Monday, and I wasn't necessarily loving what I was seeing, but I was on the Rams last night, was pretty happy with the outcome there. I know people were pretty upset with the face mask, but
wow.
I wasn't complaining myself.
I saw you tweet that, and yeah, you win, but like, come on. How do you miss that face mask?
Listen.
I just don't understand how the NFL keeps allowing these type of things to happen, where like, if that's the Canadian Football League, that gets reviewed and they overturn that. Like the CFL has that part figured out. And also, like, it is a scoring play. Shouldn't that be reviewable in some way? Like, I am stunned that every one of us across the world saw that and immediately knew, there's a face mask. And the one ref who's right there is the only person that didn't notice this.
Yeah, the scoring play thing is interesting because, if the face mask came in at midfield and it was like 4th down sack to win the game and they don't call it, then, obviously I still think the argument should be there that it should be reviewed. But the fact that it was a safety, a safety is a scoring play at the end of the day. And I thought all scoring plays were reviewed. So that part is interesting. I think that's the first time I've heard that. I mean, listen, it was a blatant face mask. And I saw a tweet today. It said the irony of all of this is that the Rams have been, they brought 3 incidents of this in recent memory to the board to say, hey, let's get face mask penalties or roughing the passer penalties reviewed. The board has said no. And then they benefit from it last night. So, I mean, I guess it's like, the rules giveth and the rules taketh away in the NFL. I personally, I know for sure it was a face mask. I totally understand. It doesn't mean the Rams are going to lose the game. They were still up 8 at the time, but it definitely just kind of put it away. just a tough spot. Like if you're on the other side there, you're very frustrated as a Vikings better or Vikings fan that like that's how the game ends. So, a tough spot after Thursday night, but yeah, I don't know. Like we saw, for instance, the Rams got screwed on or maybe they actually benefited from a PI. Remember that PI?
That was against the Saints. They benefited. They went to the World Series because of a missed PI call.
Yeah, so on the missed PI, the year after, they made PI reviewable. And then basically never changed a PI call all season long. Like whatever they called on the field was remain call. And then a year later, they said, okay, we're not reviewing that anymore. So listen, after that moment, they could add in reviewable for roughing the passer. That one was blatant. That one was clearly roughing the passer, a face mask. But at the end of the day, like this could come and go, same way the PI review did. So I don't know. The NFL is very like in their own ways. We're still using, like line judges and, we're moving the sticks. Like there is technology to find out all this information. We don't have to do that anymore. But the NFL is the NFL. I love it. I think you just got to accept it for what it is sometimes.
Yeah, I don't always like going this way. As a CFL fan, though, it's like if this happened in the CFL, they would absolutely get torched as what a joke of a league this is. And yet the NFL always, they get away with it. And look, in the end, to the Rams, like they if you put up that proposal and the league doesn't go for it, that's on the teams. Like you don't have much to complain about because you could have over the past few years implemented as a team, whether you're the Vikings or the Saints, a change to get more review on this. And if you don't want that there, well then there's not much you can complain when calls get missed. Because ultimately, and as much as I still can't believe he missed that call, refs are human. They're going to make those mistakes. They're going to miss things, and you have to live with that human error element. Then I guess. But it just
I'm getting
a poor look yesterday.
I'm getting roasted in the chat here for not talking Leafs. The Leafs got beat by the Oilers last night, or the former Oilers, I should say. Broberg and Holloway both scored last night for St. Louis. The Leafs have now lost 2 in a row pretty badly. I saw it was like the first time they've lost 2 in a row by 4+ in like a little while here, like since they were bad. I know we're going to get into the NFL talk. I don't really have much on the Leafs. Like it's been a tough watch. Saturday is going to be, I said like yesterday, I said, okay, like how does this team respond after a bad loss to Columbus going up against their new head coach's former team? Like you think they would have came out pretty hot on, I mean, they had 40+ shots last night on Binnington. I thought Binnington played solid, but the high danger chances just didn't feel there. And they're just giving up like some really ugly goals. Matthews and Marner line, probably their worst game of the season. They were both -3. I don't know. I think I'm going back to like, let's see how they respond on Saturday. If we're stringing together 3 bad games, then I think it's a cause for concern. St. Louis has also owned Toronto 6-1 in their last 7 trips to Toronto. I don't know what it is about the Blues. Like, they don't have players that necessarily jump off the page for me, but a solid game from them last night. I got to tip my cap, and those off-season moves that they made, really impressive. Matty, really impressive. I feel like the Oilers could use a guy like Holloway or Brober.
You're just trying to poke people right back there.
Yeah, well, they're poking me. That's no fun.
Yeah, no, it's fair. I'll say this. Like, when it comes to Broberg and Holloway, like, I would have kept Broberg. I stand by that. Even though he didn't want to be here, I would have just said, look, we're going to trade you next summer. But let's have a great season together this year, build up your value. Losing him and Holloway for what they lost, it's not enough for me. But it's also really early in the season. They're playing well early. It's like, and then that's where, like, so the question I would have about the Leafs to you is, like, how much, like, what is that level of concern that you might have if they lose to the Bruins tomorrow? Is it like you fear that they might not make the playoffs? Or, like, what is that level of what you're fearing is coming?
No, I think it's too early to worry about not making the playoffs. I'm trying to be a little, like, more realistic and a reasonable person when it comes to the Leafs, because I am very just like go off of immediate like, oh my god, this team sucks, they're awful, like it's the same thing all over again. I don't know, it's still super early, it's still a new head coach. I think a lot of the games they played have been impressive, even in some losses. It's just the last 2 that are a little like, okay, what's going on here? Like what? And the power play, I know you guys have this issue too in Edmonton. The power play has been really, really poor. It's tough to watch. Like it's almost a momentum killer as opposed to like a momentum shifter. So that's something that they got to figure out. Like I said, Boston hasn't necessarily jumped off the page here early in the season like they have in the past. So a win against them would go a long way to getting back in my good books. But then Monday night, they got to play the Winnipeg Jets. I think I'm going to be in the lock shop with Huss chatting about that one.
Those Jets looking really good to start this year. But here in Edmonton, people are worried about the Oilers too and stuff. And in the office, I said this at the start of the year, but in the office, I looked at a couple boys. I'm like, in April, they'll be in the playoffs. And then you guys will all be like, oh, we worried about nothing. And I'll say that to you right now. In April, the Leafs will still be in the playoffs. And this little panic, I know you're not saying playoffs though right now, this little panic that you have, it's for nothing.
Yeah, like, listen, for Oilers fans, I think the silver lining is at least Warren Fogle didn't score last night. Oh, wait, never mind. He scored twice. So that's. Anyways, it doesn't matter. We can move on to football. This is a football show, Matthew.
Yes. Okay, but before we move to football, we should build quickly an EST Oiler parlay then, I think. Oilers taking on the Pens today. I don't know if there's anything you're looking at for this one. The Oilers, they do need a win. I do love McDavid taking on Crosby. We don't get that often. That's going to be fun to see. The Oilers are inducting Craig McTavish and Dr. Randy Gregg into their Oilers Hall of Fame after the game as well today. I was looking at like a Connor McDavid over 1.5 points. I don't know if it's crazy also to go to Crosby over 1.5 points. And both boys show up tonight. They both get on the score sheet, but the Oilers win this game.
Wow, honestly, that's something different, Matty, because usually, Dusty will send something over. We got a high total right now in that game. It's up at plus 107 to the over 7 goals. But that's something a little different. A little, the current era superstar, the guy who's still doing it, as many years as he's been in the league, but we still get an Oilers win. So you go, McDavid 2+, Crosby 2+, Edmonton Oilers to win the hockey game. I think that would be a pretty solid number once we get that online if you want to go with something like that.
Yeah, like the stars often, at many times, they'll show up and they'll match each other. And if one guy, just either Crosby or McDavid has that big moment early in this game, the other guy's going to want to match it. And there's obviously a great respect they have for each other, but they also probably want to best each other tonight. So I just look at this game tonight and I feel like we're going to see probably some goals scored, and we're going to probably see that if there's goals scored, that the two big boys are going to show up on this score sheet. So I don't mind keeping it a little basic almost in a sense there with just the 3 parts to this, but McDavid and Crosby both with 2+ points, and the Oilers winning this hockey game.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I've been looking at Money Puck. Pittsburgh's one of those over teams. Like, you look at their expected goals and their expected goals against, it's both very high numbers. So one of those teams that can definitely.
Is this now just getting a little greedy? But should we add lower to over 6.5, or just leave that out?
Yeah, I don't know that we need to do that necessarily, because both those guys to get 2+ points kind of similarly correlates with the over anyways. So I don't think you're going to get a huge jump by adding the over there. Okay. I mean, Sid alone to get 2 points tonight is plus 245. So we're going to see a pretty strong number once everything's locked in there with McDavid at 2+ points and the Oilers to win. I think we leave it right at there. I think it's going to be a nice sweet spot right where you have it.
Perfect. Then let's do that. And with that, let's now actually dive into the NFL weekend here. And you, Pat, Dusty, Huss, you guys have your best bets. And where do you want to begin with that?
Yeah, I just looked at the picks. I think this is exactly where we start. Top of the page, Eagles at Bengals. Bengals right now are minus 2.5 point favorites. The Bengals have really picked it up here. They're kind of backs against the wall team. They tend to start bad all the time for whatever reason. Yeah. And, they're finding their way here. Eagles coming off a nice big win against the Giants. Huge game from Saquon Barkley. I just don't know if our guys are bought into the Eagles. I'm looking at the picks here. Dusty, Huss. Sorry, I lied. It's not on Dusty's card. Huss and Patty are both on Cincinnati at minus 2.5 this weekend at home to the Eagles. I think this is one of those things where, Cincinnati has gained a lot of life. The offense is really starting to come together, but the defense is something that has really picked it up in the last couple of weeks. Like something you can look back on and be like, wow, that Bengals defense looked atrocious. You think back to the Washington game. They couldn't get a stop if their life depended on it. Now, starting to look a little bit better. Eagles got to come into Cincinnati. So we got a couple guys on the Philadelphia Eagles, Huss and Pat, both on the – on the Bengals. Huss and Pat, both on the Bengals, -2.5. Working our way down the list. Actually, you have anything on that Eagles-Bengals game, Maddie?
It's just like you're absolutely right on the Bengals. It always seems like every year for the last couple of years we talk about how the slow start the Bengals had. And then as the season goes on, they start picking up, and Joe Burrow figures it out. As long as he stays healthy, it seems like that they do figure it out. And he's been excellent for the most part of the season, outside of really that first game against your Patriots, where they just suffocated the offense of those Bengals. And the Eagles just haven't seemed right since last third of last season or last quarter of last season. They just haven't been that Eagles team that started off so strong last year. So I like where Huss and Patty are going with that, with the Bengals -2.5. As a Ravens guy, I hope the Eagles find a way to get this win just to keep the Bengals down lower. But when you have Joe Burrow and stuff, and then they're home, I like the Bengals in that one.
Yeah. So that's where those two are going. Working our way down the list a bit. I got my eye on the Packers game. So we have three guys with the Packers -4 on their card, and I'm one of them. So I got a few things on the Packers. This is kind of a spot play for me. I'm big on the Packers this season. I know Huss is big on the Packers. They're actually not on his card. They're on Dusty's card and Pat's card and my card. So a lot of correlation there. Jacksonville just spent 2 weeks in London. And then you don't get a bye to follow. So you've got to come back home. Yes, I know it's a home game for Jacksonville, but the fact that you get acclimated over in the UK, you spend 2 weeks there, you play 2 games, you go loss against the Bears, win against the Patriots. I'm just not sold on the Jags just yet. Like, they haven't looked that impressive, if you ask me. And I think this is a great spot for the Packers to go into Jacksonville and pick up another win in a division now that is getting tightened up a little bit. The Vikings have lost 2 games in a row. Lions are out in front. But, the Packers need to win these games if they want to compete to win this division with how good it is. So I think this is one of those spots where, the Pack, they're just in a better situation than the Jags getting back from London. I just don't know, Patty, how do you not get a bye off a double London game as the Jaguars?
You decline it. Aren't teams given the option of that?
I
feel like
honestly,
I remember
maybe.
in the past that teams get the option of, or is it beforehand? There is an option I remember hearing that teams get it. Again, it's either before or after they get a bye, or you could decline it. Maybe the Jaguars chose to decline it for some reason. I don't know why you would decline it, unless you don't want to be from a business perspective, you don't want to be away from Jacksonville for 3 straight weeks or playing a home game within Jacksonville for over 3 weeks. But yeah, I know East Coast versus London and 5-hour difference, so it's not as bad as a West Coast team, but that is still a lot. And when as you pointed out, when you're there for 2 weeks, you're fully used to it now. Like, when you're done that last game against the Patriots, you're fully used to London time. So it doesn't make sense to me, but I think teams are allowed to, they get the choice of do they want to buy or not. And maybe for whatever reason they chose not to.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, it's an interesting move, in my opinion. I don't necessarily love the move, but more than likely, I think Green Bay is going on the partner parlay this week. We got 3 guys on it. Probably move it down to 3.5. Get it at that nice football number there, and hopefully they can cover for us this week. I'm just trying to work my way across.
Why did you do that?
I
was looking at the games yesterday to try to just be prepared for today, and that was the one that was at the top of my list too, with the Packers at -4. So nice. I don't see how Jacksonville comes back. They don't have any real impressive wins this season. When they lose, outside of the first game of the season, they're actually losing by more than 4 points every other game. So if that goes down to a 3.5, I absolutely love that because the Packers are a better team than Jacksonville. It's just flat out they are a better team. So I think Jordan Love and that Packers team could easily go down to Jacksonville, who will then have to be dealing with the after effects of being out in England for 2 weeks. And I don't think they'd have a problem covering 3.5.
Yeah, listen, and if you move it down to 3.5 at Coolbet, it's minus 116, which really isn't bad at all. Like that's like you could take that as a solo pick, not even talking about parlay. So not a bad number there. Just looking at the list, I believe the Browns are on somebody's card. I'm sure you can touch on this one. Patty has Cleveland plus 8.5. He's going to support Jameis Winston and the Cleveland Browns this week against your Ravens. Interesting situation in Cleveland, right? I mean, Amari Cooper's out of town. They moved him to Buffalo. And then we see the Deshaun Watson injury last week. Pretty clear that his Achilles was toast after watching the replay. It was unfortunate to see, some of the fans booing. I understand why they were booing. Deshaun Watson, as we know, not a good guy. And in the recent years has not been a good football player either. But Patty's going to back Jameis. I don't know how Jameis is going to look. In this game, Matty, I actually have circled the over. I think Jameis can definitely move the ball down the field, but I think he's prone to mistakes. Like we've seen Jameis, I think he's the one guy who went 30 for 30, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. He's the perfect over quarterback in my eyes. So Patty's going to back him. Cleveland plus 8.5. That's one of the picks on his card. I'm going to take the over. Why don't you give us a little your thoughts on this Ravens-Browns game here?
Well, yeah, as a Ravens fan, whenever I see the Bengals or the Browns come up on the schedule, I always know one of the two games is going to be tight. It's going to be a close game where, honestly, I will be worried that that's also the game that the Ravens just find a way to lose. They go to overtime and they lose by a field goal or something very close. They find a way to boggle those games. And they almost had one of those against the Bengals earlier this year where they found a way to get to overtime. And thankfully, they missed the kick, the Bengals, and Derrick Henry rushed and put the Ravens in a spot to go win that. That the 8.5 number to me is very large. Like, as good as that Ravens offense has been scoring points and how much that they've unleashed Derrick Henry along with Lamar Jackson, who's making a case to being a 3-time MVP, that defense also gives up a lot of points in itself. So right off the bat, I love the over in this. These two teams, when they play, it's not a tight football game. These aren't games like low scoring. This isn't a 15-12 game from back in like the early, late 2000s or something like that. This is a game where the Ravens defense is going to find a way to give up points. That's just what they do. The Ravens offense is going to score points. And I don't want to say it, but I like what Patty's going with that plus 8.5. It's just such a large number. I think the Ravens still win this football game. I think the Ravens walk away with a victory, but it's not going to be one of those games that I feel like, especially just how easy it was on Monday. Like, it started off a little rough with the Bucs. It was almost 14-0. Thankfully, a penalty kept it only to 10-0, and then the Ravens took over the rest of that football game. They're a team that doesn't like to do things easy, and whenever you think the Ravens are, here we go, they're going to get going, they have as a Ravens fan, you just have those moments of nervousness where they almost are going to boggle a game, and I feel like that's one of these games. And it's historically against the Browns. They don't look as strong as they should, and so in this one, 8.5 being such a large number, I can't get upset with Patty for that one. As long as he's not thinking that the Browns are going to win it, I could live with Patty going plus 8.5 on this one.
Yeah, listen, I mean, you get a home divisional underdog of more than a touchdown. It's hard to shy away from that, right? That'll be an interesting game. I'm excited to actually watch that one.
I will throw out there, Jameis Winston's not a no-name quarterback. He's been around, right? So, it's not like they're going in with some guy who the Ravens, you're looking at, the Ravens are just going to feast and this guy's going to have nothing. You're right. He's probably going to throw a couple of interceptions maybe in this game. But he's also going to find a way to score a few touchdowns in this football game.
Well, we've been waiting to see Jameis here for the past couple of years. It felt like he was going to get the job. I think it was New Orleans. Yeah. And then they brought Carr in, and, he ended up being the backup there. And then last week we thought we were going to get some more Jameis, but it ended up the backup in the situation was Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and then Jameis got some late play. But I think they've announced that Jameis is going to be the guy this week. I'm super interested to see what he looks like. I mean, this is kind of him to throw an interception right now. I just wanted to check while we were chatting. Minus 222 to throw one interception. We might have to get a over 1.5 interception number there for Jameis, because he's the guy. Like, he is the 30 for 30 touchdown, 30 interception man. So excited for that one. I think that's the right side if I was picking a side for that game. But over is my play in that Browns-Ravens.
Yeah.
Just working our way down the list. Obviously, I'm trying to hit all the picks here. Dusty is on his lines this week, minus 11.5 against the Tennessee Titans. We saw last week the Titans went into Buffalo and, went up 10-0 early, and people are kind of getting their eyes a little glued to that TV. Well, Buffalo rattles off 34 straight. They cover no problem, and there's no concern for the Bills and the Mafia there. We could see something similar this week. I think the Lions have kind of hit that rolling phase of their season where they are just going in and they're playing really strong football. They run the ball really well. They win battles at the line of scrimmage. And the weapons on the Lions, like we talk about this every week, but super impressive. Like Montgomery, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, Laporta, Jameson Williams, who just got suspended. He won't be playing, but he's been a nice piece for them. Like, everyone's helping this team get the job done. Jared Goff has looked, MVP caliber. People can argue. Big number, but what do you think about the Lions this week as double-digit favorites? The one thing I will throw in here, double-digit favorites, I believe this season are 2-0 against the spread. Hasn't been many, but double-digit favorites are 2-0 against the spread. So small sample size, but something to think about as we enter the season here.
Yeah, I would have just stayed away from this game entirely if I was Dusty on this one, just because it's just such a large number. And yeah, the Titans just got destroyed by the Bills, as you outlined there. But it's also like, are they really going to have 2 back-to-back blowout games like that? Are they not going to come and have a little bit more juice in them to keep it a little closer? How much does the Lions coming into this game, is there a letdown from the fact that they had such a big game against the Vikings last week in a huge divisional matchup? You get fully up for that. Is there going to be that letdown game where you take it a little easy? There's just a little bit of a trap game. So I just would stay away from this one. But, for Dusty, yeah. I hope it goes over because, if he has a pick and his team doesn't cover 11.5, he might be, that split feeling that's going to go on for Dusty. So good on you, Dusty. Good on you. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, I think you made a great point there. Like, is this a letdown spot? Not necessarily like a letdown like the Lions lose, but a letdown like you're going to cover 11.5. Like, you're going to win by 2 touchdowns this weekend. Well,
and I'm just looking at their schedule here. They get Green Bay next week. So you had division last week.
So let down, look ahead.
Absolutely. And you've got Green Bay up ahead next week. And now you got the Titans. And then you're going to have to cover 11.5. Like, I think they're prime, not going to say for the upset, but I think they're prime not to maybe cover that 11.5 because it's such a large number. Like, if that was 7.5 or something, like, sure. But you're double digits, 2 touchdowns, basically. That's a lot.
That's an interesting point there, Matty. The old let down, look ahead spot. You get the Titans sandwiched between 2 divisional games, 2 big time divisional games. That'll be an interesting one. The more we talk about it, the more I lean Titans. So I think that's probably not going to get added to the partner parlay this week. But
you can't have a partner parlay get blown because of 11.5.
Won't happen. Okay, let's keep rolling here. The next one I'm going to is this Falcons-Bucs game. We've got a couple guys on the Falcons. Dusty is on Atlanta minus 2.5. Huss is on Atlanta minus 2.5. And I am also on Atlanta minus 2.5. So another one that might be added to the parlay here. I think it's one of those things. We watched that Monday night game. They're in it early. They're up early like we talked about. Baltimore works their way back, and they're just losing guys left, right, and center. Mike Evans gets hurt in the first half. He's going to be out, I think, until at least they're bye in week 11. Chris Godwin, done. Toast. That ankle did not look good. Late in the game, too, when, you don't need to lose a guy like that. And they're on a bit of short rest. You play Monday night. That is short rest, whether you like it or not. I think the Falcons are coming off a tough loss against the Seahawks, where they were, I don't want to say embarrassed, but a game where they were favored and, the Seahawks kind of just took it to them. I think this is a great spot for them to bounce back. And I just worry that in Tampa, what are they going to have? They have the running backs that have shown to be pretty impressive. But if the Falcons can stop the run, who's Baker throwing the football to? I think Bucs are in a tough spot here. I think in the division, losing the guys they have, and in this spot in Week 8. So 3 of us are on the Falcons. Give me your thoughts on Falcons Bucs here, another divisional one.
Yeah, and it's one of those, like, these two teams, they're tied at the top of their division here at 4-3. I think a lot of people came into this season thinking this is going to be the Falcons' year to go take the South. This is a good moment for either of these teams to kind of go stake their claim as this is going to be their division as we approach getting a little closer to the halfway point of this season. So I think this is where the Atlanta Falcons will show that they are the team of the NFC South. And then they have had their big moments this year, and they find a way to win those close games. We saw that early through the season, through the first 4 weeks or whatever it was. Their games come right down to the wire. And I think everything you said on the Bucs and the injuries that they're dealing with is dead on. So I like the Falcons in this one. The road is a little difficult, but I think this is their chance, and they'll take their opportunity to stake their claim that the division is theirs. The NFC South is theirs. They're going to take that 2-game lead as we hit the halfway point.
Yeah, and I think it was one of those weeks where, the 4 of us, Dusty, Huss, Pat, and myself, we're kind of just picking spots. And that Falcon spot is pretty nice considering how banged up the Bucs are. They're coming off that, both teams coming off a loss. Falcons probably should have won last week against Seattle. So, if you circle that one as a win in your calendar, you got to go find another win somewhere else. They just beat the Bucs recently. I know it's hard to beat the same team twice, but I think they can get it done. Sorry, I got a sneeze. It's coming on here and just not sticking around.
Those are always
I'll just
the
keep
worst.
moving down the list. Here. I got the Bills at -3. I just talked about the Seahawks taking a big win in Atlanta last week. I know it's hard to play in Seattle, but I think when the Seahawks have taken a leap this year to play a better team, they've looked a little bit worse. I think when I think of the Seahawks and the Falcons, those teams kind of on the same level to me. When the Seahawks, they got to go a little into a more of a heavyweight category and a team that I consider like the Buffalo Bills. I just want to read through the schedule here. But they started the season 3-0. They beat the Broncos on Bo Nix's first start. They beat the Patriots in overtime, barely. And they beat the Miami Dolphins without Tua. So 3 pretty easy games. Then they lost by 13 to the Detroit Lions, 42-29. They lost by 9 to the Giants in a game off the Lions, which we didn't even touch on. But you play the Lions, you're losing the following week. It's now 0-5. Teams after playing the Lions are now 0-5 this season in their following games. So an interesting stat there. And then they went to San Francisco, and they lost by 12 there as well. Like I said, the big win against the Falcons last week. I think they're up in a weight class here against the Buffalo Bills. And road favorites since the start of Week 5 are 16-2 against the spread. So something like, you think about home field advantage all the time, I don't love taking the road favorite. I prefer to take the home dog, which is usually my strategy. I mean, clearly not making a big difference over the last 3 weeks here. So I'm on the Bills, -3. I'm the only one on that one. Anything on the Bills? We got a few more picks here to get to. And
Yeah.
we even roll into a Sunday night pick.
Well, just quickly, the Seahawks are that one team that generally has that home field that kind of works, but they're 2-2 at home this season. So even just straight up record-wise, they're 2-2 at home. They have been beatable. When I was looking at some things, I did have actually last night. I was looking at the over of the Ravens Browns as well. I had that one down, but I also put down the Bills at -3. The Bills are also a team that I feel like they're kind of the sneaky, not talked about top team in the NFL a little bit right now. There's a lot, the Chiefs are the best team, obviously, being undefeated. Lions get their attention. The Ravens getting a lot of attention. I feel like the Bills are kind of sneaky, just under the radar a little bit. But they're a good football team. And you look at who they've lost to, they've lost a good football team. So, I as you said, it is difficult to go to the West Coast. But if there's one of those teams that is able to do that, it is the Buffalo Bills. They're just such a strong team who are slowly coming to their own. And you add Amari Cooper into the mix, and who knows what that team's going to fully be.
Yeah, listen, you think about the Bills' losses. The one of the Ravens, the Ravens were in desperate need of a win there.
Yep.
They took it to them. But the one of the Texans, a lot of bonehead play calling late in that game to set up Houston with a game-winning field goal. Listen, I think that Bills could have easily won that game as easily as they lost it.
Yeah.
And like you said, I still think they're a top team in the AFC. There's nothing out there that makes us believe otherwise. So Let's keep it moving down the list here. We got the Broncos minus 10.5 now against the Carolina Panthers. I believe Bryce Young's going to start. Andy Dalton got in a car accident this week. He is okay, but he's not going to play. Huss has the Broncos. He actually got him at 9.5, so this number's already moved up a point. We'll honor the 9.5 for Huss. Broncos have been playing really good defense. I don't know if I love them to blow anybody out. I know they have this season. I can't sit there and watch the Broncos and think this is a good football team. Obviously, you got to pick your spots. Like Carolina, I can definitely sit there and watch Carolina and say this is a bad football team. Yeah. Last week, I had the over in that game against Washington. Washington scored 40 points. They only scored 7, and they hit the under, which was very, very frustrating to watch. I don't know if this off time for Bryce Young is going to make him look better or worse. So I can understand the play from Huss. I don't think coming into a team like the Broncos with the defense as good as they have is a great spot for Bryce Young to come back. I think it's just Panthers are going to be another one of those teams that we're going to be sitting there at the end of the season, and they're going to be at the bottom of the barrel once again. So Huss is on the Broncos. He got them at 9.5. They're up to 10.5 now, which bodes well for him. Any thoughts on Bryce Young and the Panthers against the Denver Broncos?
Yeah, when I was looking last night, this is that other game I was looking at. I don't. It's not the win-loss. I don't think I could go and bet on the Broncos to put up a big win. Like that's a 10+ point win. Like that, I'm not that confident in the Denver Broncos and what they could do. I like the under in this one though. You got two offenses that don't score a lot of points. The Panthers averaging 15 points a game. Broncos are at 20 points a game. But then on the flip side, too, you also got a Denver Broncos defense that is actually one of the better defenses in the National Football League. They don't give up a lot of points. They're only giving up 15 points per game. They're a suffocating defense. So right off the bat, I just don't see how the Panthers are going to score points. And I don't think the Broncos are a team that is going to have 30-plus points in this football game. So the way I like this game, I love the under on this one. I know it's already low at 41, but I don't think that combined these two teams are getting more than that. So I think this is going to be a very low-scoring football game, and the score is going to be very difficult to come from. I'm not liking the Panthers finding it. And because it's low-scoring, I also could see that that's why the Broncos will have a tough time actually covering a 10.5.
Yeah, I think that's great analysis on that one. I think the under is definitely something I have circled on my card this week. Let's keep rolling here. We got 10 minutes, 9 minutes. Chiefs minus 9.5 also on Huss's card. So we got both guys backing their teams this week. We got Huss back in the Chiefs, Dusty back in the Lions. We might just have to throw in a little for the community NFL parlay this week is immediately what I'm thinking. Since they both like their teams to cover this week, we can absolutely get that into the combo cards as well. Listen, I don't have a lot to say on the Chiefs. I almost think they're bored. So maybe, which is crazy to say, but, I watch a lot of good Patriots football. And a lot of times in the middle of the season, the team looks bored because they're so used to just winning football games. And no matter how it is, whether you're winning from the offense or the defense, you're just finding ways to get it done. And I think from what I've heard, like the Chiefs have already eaten into the hard part of their schedule. Like they're coming up on an easy run here, which is crazy to say because they're already 6-0 or 6-0 or 7-0. I can't remember if they have a bye or not. 6-0. Thank you.
6-0. We've got Raiders, Bucks, Broncos, Bills, Panthers, Raiders, Chargers, Browns, Texans, Steelers, Broncos. Not a lot of tough ones in it. Bills are in there. Texans are in there. That's kind of it.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. So, yeah, listen, I don't really have much more on the Chiefs. I was on them last week. You don't bet against Pat Mahomes if he's an underdog. I mentioned that last week. He took care of business. I don't know if I love them at minus 9.5, but the Raiders haven't showed me anything to make me believe in them. So this game is more than likely a stay away for me.
Yeah, it's everything you said. Like they're like that Patriots. They just know they have to be good in January. That's when they have to be at their absolute best. And the Patriots, for many years, that's what they did. They got through the regular season. They did what they needed to. They got their wins. And then when the playoffs came, they really picked it up. And that's what we're starting to see from the Chiefs. So I'm with like they're not the high score like what Patrick Mahomes is 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions or something like that this season. Like this isn't an offense that's going out there and doing what like Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are doing, but they're finding ways to win football games. So I don't know what to make of the spread on that one. So I'm with you. I would stay away from this one. But Huss and Dusty, they could have their teams. They could have their teams, and Huss hopefully he'll be cheering them loudly for the Chiefs out in Vegas.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, last two primetime picks, and then I'll break down everyone's cards so you know who's taking who. I'll put together a partner parlay, and then I'll talk about the house callers, which is already up. Last 2 picks, Dusty and I are both on the Cowboys at +4.5. I think this is another spot play where San Fran is very beat up. Debo's not doing well. Ayuk's out. Kittle's been banged up most of the season. CMC's still not there. Like, this is really going to be a test of the Brock Purdy. Is he a system quarterback or not? Because you don't have all these powerhouse names when it comes to the skill positions. So can he get it done with a group of kind of second tier level guys? The Dallas Cowboys are also coming off the bye. I think they're a desperate team. I think they need to win football games, and I think they're in actually a decent spot here. So I think they're actually, not only do I like the 4.5, Dusty, as well, I like them. I think they're live in this one. I like them possibly to win as well, +185 on the money line. And then the last one, Patty is on the Steelers, -6.5 at home to the New York Giants. I don't think Mike Tomlin's ever lost a Monday Night Football game. I saw that stat floating around earlier this week. Steelers have looked really solid. That defense looked good, and they looked even more dynamic with Russell Wilson at quarterback, which I hate to be saying because I wasn't a believer in Russ after him in Denver. I thought it was quite an ugly time there he had in Denver. But, maybe he's reinvigorated. Maybe it's a new Russell Wilson. The line has come down to 6. Pat had it on his card at 6.5, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, give him that extra half point. The Giants, another team that's on the lowest of lows after a loss to the Eagles last week, got gashed by their former running back. Any thoughts on those 2 games? And then, I know we're tight on time here. I'll build the parlay, and then we'll get moving.
Yeah, just quickly, Mike Tomlin, 20-3 on Monday Night Football, but at home he's 10-0. That's where the stat is there. The other thing I just want to quickly throw out there, I think people should just keep an eye on. I got to find it on Washington Commanders are the home dogs against the Bears, but I think that partly goes into the status of Daniels. And I think people should be paying attention to it. He was practicing today. He's a game-time decision still, Jaden Daniels, for the Commanders. If he's playing, I like the Commanders to take care of business against the Chicago Bears at home. So if you all of a sudden see that he's playing, you need to quickly jump on that because I could see maybe that line could move or something. But that's the one I would be just keeping an eye on as the weekend progresses and the status of Jaden Daniels because I think the Commanders are a very good football team. And the Bears are doing better than I expected this year. But if Jaden Daniels is in the lineup for the Commanders, I like them at home. And that's straight up on the money line, +125. I'll let you get to your parlay, though, here.
Yeah, here we go. So I'm just going to break down who everyone has just so everyone knows. Let's start with Dusty. He's got Falcons -2.5, Cowboys +4.5, Lions -11.5, and Packers -4. Huss has got Cincinnati -2.5, Denver -9.5, KC -9.5, and Falcons -2.5. All favorites there on Huss's card. Patty's got Cincy -2.5, Cleveland +8.5, Pittsburgh -6.5. I told him we'll give him 6 there. And the Packers -4. And then myself, I got Bills -3, Packers -4, Cowboys +4.5, Falcons -2.5. So a lot of crossover. I think it's going to be pretty simple looking at it. We have 3 guys on Atlanta. We have 3 guys on Green Bay. I think both those are on the card. And then Huss and Patty both on Cincy at -2.5. So I think we'll go Cincy -2.5, Atlanta -2.5, Green Bay -3.5. 3 short favorites. I believe a couple of those are road favorites. I talked about how good they've been in the past few years. I think that'll be the parlay. Any thoughts on that, Matty? You good with that? I feel like covers it all.
I think that's dead on, and that's going to be a good little number that you guys will be able to put up for the partner parlay.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one. Here's the touchdown scores. We've got 4 running backs, all with the first name starting with a J. This wasn't done on purpose. This was total accident. Dusty's got Jahmyr Gibbs, Huss, J.K. Dobbins, Patty is Javonte Williams, and I've got James Cook of Buffalo to score this week. That parlay is already online in the exclusives. 12-1 for the Lock Shop house callers. Gibbs, Dobbins, Cook, and Williams all to score this weekend. I'm excited. I mean, we're going to go partner parlay, house callers, and I'm going to add a for the community for Huss and Dusty. Since we didn't get those 2 picks that they had on the partner parlay card, we'll get them on a separate card for both their teams to cover this weekend.
That's in the exclusives on Coolbet. You'll also be able to get to the Oiler parlay, the EST parlay for today. If you go on the combo cards at the top, the Lothers Legs, the Random Wheel parlay, the EST Early Bird NFL parlay, those are also all up there. So a lot to look at when it comes to this upcoming weekend in the National Football League. We got to run. Jake, this was a lot of fun. It was great talking some World Series, NHL, and NFL with you. And best of luck with all the bets this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, good luck to the Oilers fans tonight. Don't think too much about Holloway and Fogle and Broberg. It'll be okay.
I was waiting to see where you would stick the needle there. Thanks, everyone, for tuning into the Lock Shop. Up next, it's the Oil Stream with Tommy and Hernan Salas. On behalf of Jake, I'm Matt. Have a great weekend. Lock Shop back Monday at 11.